Now that we've tracked motion, now that we've used a 3D motion tracker, it's time to do something else with the same theme. Now, if you look inside of the motion tracking folder, you'll find another piece of footage called Jumpy Pool. And what I did with this footage is I simply moved myself up and down so that the footage would shake. It's like being in a movie Cloverfield all of a sudden, waiting for the monster to go through my window. Now, what we can do here is stabilize this footage. So what is the difference between stabilization and motion tracking? Well, motion tracking, as you saw, was locking on to a point of interest and following it. Stabilization works in a different way, but it does use the same kind of tools. Instead of moving things around, it locks things down. So we could, for example, use this dark contrast as a lockdown point, as it were, and maybe even this area because it has a lot of contrast, or even this area. Now this, not too good because it's green. It might work, but not really, possibly. But the goal here is that After Effects is not going to keep your footage still. If we were to keep this 8 ball and this ball here relatively in the same positions, After Effects is going to literally have to move the footage around like this so that when it's done tracking and stabilizing, this stays put and maybe jiggles just a little tiny bit. So let's go once again back to our motion tracking controls. We have the footage selected, and I'm going to choose Stabilize Motion. Now you'll notice we have our track point, just like before. Let's go ahead and maximize the frame and put it in position. So I'm going to put this first tracking point right here on this 8, and I'll just magnify a little bit more. I like to give the tools a little bit more meat to bite into. But we need, typically for a stabilization, more than one reference point. So I'm going to add another track point. Now I'm going to go ahead and restore my frame size, and I'm going to go to the options for the tracker panel, and we're going to add a new track point here. And once again, let's go ahead and zoom in on this guy, just so we can see what we're doing. We'll take our other track point and maybe lock it on right about there. And I'll just make this a little larger like so. That should give the tool enough data to lock on. So it should stay here and it should stay here. Of course, that's all in theory, as everything is in computers. I can choose, of course, like before, to stabilize position, rotation, and scale. And I'm going to go scrub a little bit, and it does rotate just a little bit, so I might want to enable rotation. It doesn't zoom in or out, so I'm going to leave the scale off. But just to be safe, I'll put the rotation on, and we'll see whether or not we need it or not. If not, we can always turn it off. And now we're going to apply. So I'm going to go ahead and analyze first, and you'll see that everything's staying where it's supposed to stay. So it really is working pretty nicely. And we have 1 trillion keyframes. So let's go ahead and maximize that. Look at all those keyframes. Imagine having to do this the old-fashioned way. You'd be crying a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and apply. I'm going to choose X and Y. And look at the footage. See how it changes? After Effects has to do this because it has no other way to really lock this footage down. So let's go ahead and see what it looks like. So I'm going to hit home on my keyboard. I hit the space bar, and hopefully these guys stay put. So the footage is jiggling around, but those tools are not really moving too much. All right, let's check that out. I highly suggest, of course, if you're going to do this kind of thing, that the star attractions remain in the center like I have here, and any extraneous data that you might want to clip away is out here. You might want to even shoot your footage a little larger than usual so that you have a nice focus when you do this. This is very useful for tracking a person walking up a flight of stairs, and you want to steady that motion a little bit. Of course, you know, if you're going to do a steady or shaky cam kind of feature like Cloverfield or the Blair Witch Project, sometimes the footage can get a little out of control, and in order not to make your audience pass out, you could stabilize certain pieces of footage so it's not quite so shaky. Not everybody can handle all that jumping around, so that is a look at how we can stabilize footage.